Hello everyone, my name is Leo Robert. I'm a PhD student at Limos University Clermont-Auvergne, and I will present our joint work about messaging protocols and improvements toward the specific security notions that we will see. So first, what is messaging protocol? We need to ensure a secure channel between Alice and Bob in order to communicate asynchronously. So meaning that Alice need not to be online at the same time as Bob. We need also several other security properties such as the mutual authentication, meaning that Alice wants to be sure that she's talking to Bob and vice versa. One of the interesting features about the Signal protocol is that it has two security properties which are perfect forward secrecy and post-compromise security. So those two notions are linked. They are kind of orthogonal in the sense that the PFS, so perfect forward secrecy, you ensure that once a compromise is done, all the past sessions or all the past stages are secured. And for the PCS, post-compromise security is the inverse. So you start for a compromise, and then at some point in the future, your communication will be secured. But notice that there is some time where the adversary has still access to the communication. But at some point, what we call the HeALing, then the adversary is like eject from the communication. So we will describe the Signal protocol, then give some example toward the PCS notions to understand a bit more, and then propose a solution, MARSHAL, which is an improvement for the PCS notion, and give some security analysis about it and the detail of the implementation. So what is Signal? So we need to understand a notion that is critical for Signal, which is the stage. So suppose that Alice is the initiator of the communication with Bob. So she will send the first message, so hello, in the chain number 1. And as long as Bob is not responding, then she will continue on the same chain. And the second message can be, how are you? Since Bob is responding, well, he will begin a new chain with the first message in it. And as long as Alice is not responding, then Bob will stay in that very chain. And then when Alice responds to Bob, will increment the chain. So basically, a stage is a message where we can locate with XY coordinate. And the X is the Xiest message of chain Y. So an illustration of this stage flow is, so first you need to make a AKE, so authenticated key exchange protocol in order to have a shared secret between Alice and Bob. We will explain it a bit later. But the first message is 1-1, first message of the first chain. And so she will derive horizontally the stage as long as Bob is not responding. And if Bob is responding, then we will make the evolution vertical. So if you have a change in the speaker, well, you move downwards, and if you have no change in the speaker, well, you will do the evolution on the horizontal. To understand the signal, we need to understand also what is the ratchet algorithm and the double ratchet algorithm. So first, let's have a look at symmetric ratchet. So this is what is modelizing the PFS, so perfect forward secrecy. So recall that for PFS, we are given a compromise, and we want to ensure that all the past communication were secured. So here we will just give as input to chain to KDF, so key derivation function. So here the property is that we can efficiently compute from the input the output given to the KDF, but the reverse is not possible. So meaning that if we know CK2, we cannot go back to CK1. So this will be used to derive message keys, MK, and each message is encrypted with a different keys, and those keys are message keys. So notice that here, if you learn at some point one of the chain key for CK, well, you can derive all the next CK. There is no additional data or randomness in it. So the asymmetric ratchet, which is kind of the PCS notions here, adds some randomness in the derivation of the key material. So here it's basically the same as symmetric ratchet, except that now in each KDF we will add some randomness. So it's in the form of Diffie-Hellman values. And here we will say that this is the root keys that are given to input and output, and the chain key are derived. So we can mix both and to have the double ratchet algorithm. So in the vertical and left we have the asymmetric ratcheting, and on the right and horizontally we have the symmetric ratchet. So for signal protocol, with the first steps are registration and setup. So here we are, once registering, Alice and Bob need to send their public key to a semi-trusted server, so the server of a signal. Those keys are, so the identity key, which is a long-term keys used in several sessions between several partners, and some pre-keys. So those keys are used to initiate the communication and to compute a shared secret during the setup phase, where suppose that Alice wants to talk to Bob, then she will send a request to the server, like I want to talk to Bob. And the server will reply with the public key of Bob sent previously upon registration. So Alice can compute via the X3DH protocol, so the triple extended Diffie-Hellman protocol, the MS, so master secret value. So this is just a concatenation of Diffie-Hellman values. And notice that Bob can compute also the same MS. So the key scheduler of signal is basically the double ratchet algorithm. So you start with AKE, non-interactive AKE, non-interactive authenticated key exchange to derive the master secret, and then initiate the first chain in order to recover the message key for Alice to send messages to Bob. She will compute a new key at this point, adding some freshness into the chain. So those are the ratchet key. And as long as Bob is not responding, then Alice can go on to that chain horizontally on the right. Once Bob wants to reply to Alice, well, he will compute a new ratchet key to make the asymmetric ratchet, and then compute its own chain to compute message key to send to Alice. And this ensures, in fact, the asynchronicity, because Bob can respond at any point, and Alice will just continue on her chain, and the same for Bob. So suppose now that an adversary can reveal some keys, so the ratchet key of 01 of Alice and the root key. So in that case, um, the adversary has all the information to compute the second chain, actually, because he can compute the CK12 and then all the rest of the chain. So all the message that Bob is sending to Alice is compromised by the adversary. But here, the HeALing will take place at this step because now the adversary has no longer access to those new keys generated at this very moment. And so the protocol heals and the adversary is eject of the communication. Let's have a look on more powerful adversaries where it can inject its own key material, meaning that here the adversary will change the initialization of the chain by injecting its own ratchet key. So here, actually, Alice will think that she's talking to Bob, but actually this is the adversary because this is the own value of the adversary. And but Bob can no longer communicate with Alice since those are not the same keys as Bob. And all the communication for Alice to Bob is compromised, and this is what we call a hijack session because here the adversary impersonates Bob toward Alice. So our solution, MARSHAL, is actually twofold because we are doing asymmetrical ratcheting in each step of the key derivation function. So we add some diffie-Hellman. So basically we add some randomness into the derivation, the key derivation, to ensure that a passive attacker needs to reveal all the keys at each stages. And we also have signatures, actually. So this is the sigma on those values to ensure that active attacker needs to also forge a signature or reveal the signature keys in order to inject its own key material. So in yellow is all the modification we make towards signal. So let's have a detailed look at the first step. So how can we compute the message, the master secret, and how we can compute the first message key. So suppose that we have Alice and Bob. First, we need to send additional public key to the server to initiate the communication. So this is the uppercase T0. So in order to compute the master secret, it's the same. We use X3DH. But each time now, so Alice wants to compute the chain key with the message key. Well, she will add a signature on the ratchet keys and the actual computation using the identity of Bob. In order to Bob to recover all those information, we need to send additional data along the encrypted message. So the public keys that are used by Alice. And those additional data are linked to the encrypted message via AEAD, so authenticated encryption with additional data, to ensure that those data are indeed from Alice. So now let's have a look at how Bob is responding. First, just go back. Suppose that Alice is sending the some message L1, so a message into the first chain. So in each additional data, Alice needs to send all the previous ratchet public keys used in that chain. And this is to handle what we call out of order message. So out of order message is, well, suppose that some messages are lost during transmission, and Bob needs to compute all the chain along. So if there is some message that is missing, then we need to ensure that Bob can compute the future keys. So this is why we are including all those previous ratchet public keys. When we are switching speakers, so Bob needs to compute the new so upper keys and lowercase t to initiate the chain, and each time he will compute so a signature with the defilement values to derive the message key. And again, he will add metadata to its encrypted message for Alice to make it possible to compute or to make the same computation, in fact. So suppose that we have a passive adversary that is somehow able to reveal the initialization chain of chain 2 and 3. So in that case, we have a direct HeALing because the adversary has no longer access to randomness added at this point. So this is the defilement value that will stop and eject the adversary from the communication. So all the rest is secured. For active attack now, suppose that the adversary can replace some values into the initialization chain. And now we also have this HeALing because, well, all the messages are signed. So Bob will notice that the adversary is trying to inject its own key material, and Alice the same. Otherwise, the adversary can forge signatures on the UFCMA scheme, basically. So here, the asymmetrical ratcheting is for passive adversaries, and the authentication at each stage, what we call persistent authentication, ensures that active adversary needs also to reveal the signature keys. So we propose a model for our security analysis, and we are close to the first formal analysis of signal in Concordat-Talus, and we stay also close from Blasier-Talus for identity-based signal variant, which is called SED. So here we made our PCS explicit. So we have a game between an adversary and challenger. We rolled out some trivial attacks. So basically, if you reveal the message key, then we have a trivial attack. But we have many cases where MARSHAL is secure under those attacks, but not signal. And we also have message loss resilience notion. So this is basically the out of order message, which has not been done in Concordat data. So we have a theorem ensuring the security of our protocol based on gap diffie-Hellman and UFCMA signature scheme. So we did the implementation. So we don't have, we have an overhead, but the overhead is not, in practice, it's, so all the results are in milliseconds, so this is not that large, and we have so 3 scenarios in it. So first we look at the session setup, then a first message of a new chain, and a message with a chain. So here, although we have big overhead between signal and MARSHAL, but in practice this remains all right. So we propose a variant for signal to improve the PCS notion. So we are actually doing asymmetrical ratcheting for each stage, so dealing with passive adversary, and we make a persistent authentication for active adversary. So we have an overhead, which is quite normal, but the global evaluation is remain practical. As future work, we can improve the memory management, design a multi-party MARSHAL, because in signal this is a pairwise, so the groups are not scalable. And we can also propose like a uniform model to compare protocols that has the PCS notion. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any question, feel free to ask.